Hey everyone, in the spirit of nurturing our mindset, before we jump into the content, I want to introduce a couple of important concepts and a metaphor that I think you'll find interesting to communicate the importance of ownership and accountability. One of my favorite leadership books for a number of years has been this book. It's called The Oz Principle. It's been around for a few decades and many don't know about it. In this story, or in this book, the authors use the story of the Wizard of Oz, or the Land of Oz, to communicate the importance of ownership and accountability and how it's really the key leadership competency that all of their leadership competencies rest upon. And I'm going to just share with you a couple of the details from this story to remind us about some of the key takeaways and what it means for us as leaders. The story starts with a young woman, Dorothy, a simple person, and she is what is thrust upon her is a tornado, takes up her home, removes her from her land, from her place, and takes her to a land that she's never heard of before. And it's a very different and strange land. And, in a nutshell, as she finds herself in this place, as enthralling, as interesting it is, she wants to get back home. And she discovers that others around her are letting her know that the only way to get back home is to go to the Emerald City to meet the great and powerful Oz, who has all the means necessary in order to help her to achieve this objective to get back home. So she proceeds down the Yellow Brick Road, and she encounters all kinds of exciting experiences and obstacles. But importantly, along the way, she adopts 3 friends. 3 companions, and what she discovers is these companions also have dreams and aspirations. They want to accomplish great things, and they too believe that at the end of the Yellow Brick Road in the Emerald City with the great and powerful Oz, they'll be able to find what they're looking for. Okay? Great story. If you haven't seen it recently, highly recommend it. But here's the interesting thing. The rub we discover near the end of the story is that the great and powerful Oz is not as great and powerful as others had believed. He's actually just a simple person. He doesn't actually have the means necessary in order to send Dorothy back on his own. He also doesn't have what the others need to achieve their dreams and outcomes. But what's amazing, and this is the leadership takeaway, is that everything each one of those characters needed to accomplish their dreams was within them. They had it at their fingertips. Or for Dorothy's situation, she had it on her feet. At any time, she could have clicked her heels and she could have returned home. At any time, the lion could have discovered he had all the bravery necessary, the Tin Man heart, Scarecrow intellect, but they needed to go through that journey to begin to learn that they had it inside of themselves to accomplish their dreams. Now, as leaders, for me, one of the important takeaways is that we have the ability to choose to own how we will respond to every circumstance that we encounter. Now, in this book and throughout this training, we're going to introduce an idea to you, an idea that we're going to refer to often. We're going to look at ownership and accountability from the lens of what we refer to as the thin line. Okay? This line is going to represent that every one of us has a choice. We can choose to be owners, or we can choose to play the part of a victim. In other words, at times I'm going to reference what it means to live above or lead above the line. And we will also describe for you what it means to live and to lead from below the line. We're going to dig into that a little bit more. But in essence, what it means is that in every moment, I as a leader can choose to live above the line and choose to own how to respond to every circumstance. I have responsibility, the ability to respond to any circumstance. As a matter of fact, here's an interesting tidbit to illustrate this. Stanford did a study a number of years ago, and they asked leaders of organizations in all industries what was one of the top key leadership skills that they wanted to develop among their leaders in their companies. And the top leadership skill that they wanted developed was to hold others accountable. So the leadership skill of holding others accountable. Now, that makes sense to me. However, I've begun to appreciate that there's a different way that we can look at that. If I'm a leader who leads a team who I must spend most of my time, energy, and effort holding them accountable, it also means that I have a team of unaccountable individuals. And maybe I might be modeling that kind of behavior. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that the great leadership competency and skill is actually to develop a culture where we can invite others to hold themselves accountable and then to share that accountability laterally and up and down in all directions. We can hold each other accountable. And we do that by modeling it. We do that by choosing to lead and to live above the line. So as we move forward, I'm inviting each of us to consider how often we might fall below the line, not in a shaming sort of a way, but just to understand there's always a choice. We can choose to live above the line. We can choose to be owners of our circumstance. We can choose to respond in healthy and productive ways. And we're going to provide you with some tools and some resources to help you to continue to choose to lead and to live above the line so you can invite your team to do the same.